All right, welcome everybody to the Quarter Century Soldier, the mini series about myself, Felix Black, being a U.S. Army soldier for 25 years. Today we're talking about the year 2010. I joined in 2000, so now we're 10 years in. This is a halfway point for a lot of people. Usually, if people make it to 10 years, they make it to 20 because you've already done so much time. If somebody doesn't make it to 20, usually because they may have gotten in trouble, medically retired, or sometimes people do decide to get out. Okay. So 2010, I'm living in DC still, just like from 2009. If you haven't seen 2009, it's on YouTube. Check that out. 2010. So they closed down my department in 2010, end of 2009. So I was in blood research. We're researching different ways to carry blood, store blood for emergency purposes, whether that's war or natural disasters. So we shut that down in 2009. I have to find a new home in the research center. So I go to clinical trials. Okay. Clinical trials is just like it sounds. This is where we try new drugs, new uniforms, new things on people. Once a drug gets to a certain level of testing, it when it has like FDA approved, you see these news reports all the time about how a new drug for HIV could be created, and you see like animals, you might see people getting their blood drawn. This is one of the stages of a new drug approval, like Viagra, like Ozempic, stuff like that. They go through phases. First phase is just data. We're looking at, microscopic things. So they may draw blood from an animal or from a human and test it in the dish. So there's no testing inside my body. We look at the numbers. We look to see how it improves based on reactions, and then if it's viable, we move to animal testing in different, whether it's rats, monkeys, mice, dogs. It happens, right? And so this is where it happens in these research centers. So yes, we have veterinarians, we have vet techs, because they do care for the animals that I don't want to say we run experiments on, because we don't do that. We test the drugs that we want to, test on humans. But we're not going to do that until we get good feedback from animals. And so we're not like out catching them. We have farms that raise them. So they like breed them for that purpose. And it is very controlled. People think that we're just, in there poking and prodding and they're screaming. It's not like that, right? The use of animals is so very controlled that you have to get a level of clearance to even start, using your drug on them. And then we have to be sure that it's not causing any undue pain, that we're just not killing them slowly, that if we document something that is, terminal, we go through the motions of making sure that they, don't feel any pain once they die. So it's not like, we have animals in cages bleeding out of their eyes and ears. It's not like that. I know the news and different organizations want you to believe that, but we literally have licensed veterinarians on staff that oversee the animals, and so they're part of all of our trials. But this clinical trial was humans, right? So we're doing human trials. I was the senior enlisted to the director, so I like to say that I'm either the operations guy or the chief of staff, right? So I have 16 people underneath me, and I report to the CEO, the director. To me, that's the chief of staff, the COO, chief of operations. So basically every day people have problems. It was 6 military, 10 civilians. So basically people have problems. They can't come to work. They don't feel good. They need to take time off. They have problems with each other. I'm the guy, and you tell that to me, and I go into conflict resolution. However, it's best to make that happen. So pretty much this is my position until the end of my time in the Army, just because of the rank that I hold, right? So before I got into clinical trials, I went to what we call the bioproduction facility. It is a small building that was across the street, and that's where we're making the vaccines. We had vaccines for flu. I can't remember the other vaccine we had. It was before COVID, but it was like it wasn't like a swine flu. I forgot what the name of it was. I didn't see it on any of my papers, but I want to say it was like some sort of respiratory, almost like a cold. But we did the flu vaccine there. We did like the when you get your Hep B, like your typhoid, stuff like that, like those immunizations that you get throughout your career and sometimes the beginning when you're a baby. We did those there. So I was in charge of that facility. It's pretty much one big clean room. What we do is we go through, they manufacture the vaccines there, but it has to be a completely sterile environment, completely. So we go through and we just make sure that it's clean. We don't clean them. Someone else cleans them, steams them. The whole damn room is, the rooms were metal. It's a building, but it's multiple rooms. They're metal. So they get like a deep steam clean, crazy degrees of heat in there to sterilize everything. So what we do is we suit up, we put on like the outbreak uniforms, respirators, because again, us breathing is germs. And so what it is, we go in and we check, we do swab samples on all of the surfaces, and we see what's growing, if anything's growing in there, because if there's any growth, it should be none. It should be nothing. Obviously, it shouldn't be anything pathogenic, which is bad. And there shouldn't be anything which is like normal growth. There's a lot of things that have like normal bacteria on it that's not life-threatening or anything, but just it's a surface. So that's what I did, was we manufactured those vaccines. They went out to companies like Pfizer, Moderna, and then we had the vaccines that go out to the government, to where the military gets vaccinated, the government civilians get vaccinated, stuff like that. So I did that for about 3 to 4 months. Working in those clean rooms. It was a pain in the ass. It is, because you have to get really suited up. You go through these chambers, that just blow all of the like, I don't want to say matter, but just blow all like the particles off of you, so that it basically sterilizes like you. It's a process. And so just doing that every day, it becomes a headache. It becomes a lot to go in there, put on your clean suit, put on the mask, put on the respirator, the boots and everything. You go through this door. It's like a huge vacuum. Blows all this air down on you. Boom, 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 boom. And then you stand in this little vestibule, this little hallway. And then before you go to the other side, the other one is like pulling things down and away, so you don't track it into the clean room. Okay, so I did that for a couple months. It was cool. but I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. So then after I was done with the bioproduction facility, I moved to the clinical trials. And clinical trials is actually very, very interesting. So what do we do in clinical trials? Part of it is recruiting. We go out, we make these flyers, and we recruit people for clinical studies. One of the clinical studies we had was a sleep study, which was like a week long. You would stay at the you would actually sleep at the research center. They had a certain department, which was like a bunch of different rooms. It's not like bunk beds. You're not sharing a room. You're in an individual room, but you're there for like a week. You don't get to leave, and there's not like phones or anything like that. So you're just there. People were getting like 6,000-7,000 for the sleep study. I never done it, but I know they would keep you up for like 48 to 72 hours. You have a person that's dedicated to you while you're there, because you're hooked up with probes and stuff like that. And then basically you're taking tests, you're doing cognitive activities, exams, just to see how the human brain functions after it's been deprived of sleep. But that's the hardest part, is you have to stay up, and then they have people there keeping you up. That's why I never done it, because I'm not with that. I'm not with staying up 2-3 days. Hell with that for no amount of money. But it paid really well. There was always a line of people, a waiting list of people wanting to get into the sleep study. I think because it was really simple, and it was one of our more popular clinical trials. And it wasn't for any drug or anything like that. It was just working with the human brain to see, how it reacts when it's deprived of sleep. Another one of our more popular ones was we did a malaria study. So we had a vivarium. A vivarium is where we keep insects, we keep animals, right? So this was, a vivarium full of mosquitoes, literally mosquitoes. So we had flyers when we go out and we recruit people to do these research studies. The malaria study paid about $4,300. And I want to say it was a pipe for like 2 to 3 weeks. So what it is, we recruit you, you come in, do the evaluation, bop, see if you meet the requirements in order for us to, include you into the study. Naturally, we want people that's within a certain age. You have to be generally healthy, and not have any like allergic reactions to the medication or anything like that. So we have a control group. We have a group that's not going to get it. We have a group that may get it. And we have a group that is going to get it, right? You're going to get it. Basically, what happens is the way that we pay is you come in to get blood drawn throughout your time in the study. It might have been longer than 3 weeks, may have been a month. But you come in to get your blood drawn throughout the study. Every time you get your blood drawn, you get $100. Boom. Once you get malaria, you're out of the study, right? Because, you've gotten it. So once you get it, you're going to be treated for it, and then you're going to be kind of released. So basically the first step is when you get signed up for the study is you go put your hand in the vivarium. you put your arm in there up to your elbow. These are live mosquitoes. And I'm not going to say you let them bite you, but they do what they do. And I forgot how long it was. I want to say it was like 30 seconds to like a minute. But you literally would put your hand in there with mosquitoes. Okay. Let them do their thing. And then from there, you're underneath the care of our training staff, because, you know, we have doctors, we have infectious diseases, nurses, nurse practitioners on staff. Specifically, when this clinical trial is going, you have a dedicated staff to it. So what happens is you have to come back in. I forgot the schedule, but you have to come back in every day, every other day, whatever like that, to get your blood drawn. Basically, what we're looking for is parasites. That's all malaria is a parasite in your red blood cells. So you come in, get your blood drawn, bop, bop. We look at it underneath the microscope. You're good. Okay, you're good to go. Now, if you experience symptoms while you're at home, like it's been like a week or so, and you don't, and you start to experience symptoms, right? Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, like headaches, fatigue, you could call there's somebody that's available to you 24 hours a day. You call them and you let them know, and you know, they would set up for you to get the pills that we had, but we would still get a blood sample from you to confirm that you have it, and then, you know, you're done. There's nothing more for you to do. We're just getting that research from how it's interacting with your blood cells, how long it took you to get it, and you know, we take into account your demographics, your age, your sex, your ethnicity, your stuff like that. So that's how we get those numbers when they say, you know, this affects Black males between 25 and 30 have experienced this. This is how we get those numbers. So I've been in it for 2 weeks. Boom, I have it. They're going to take all of those notes to say, okay, this is how long it took him to get it, because someone else who went through that same process, who may be younger, who may be older, didn't get it, and they're still in the process. Towards the end, when the normal time period is supposed to be, okay, people are going to start really coming down with this now. We really have to be hyper vigilant. You're going to get some people whose body react a little bit sooner than others. And those are the ones that have the 24-hour, and they call and say, hey, I'm doing the double dragon in my in my bathroom. I think I'm positive, right? But for the most part, usually everyone kind of comes down with it in the same time frame. So what it is we would book the Marriott. We'd book like an entire floor just for our research purposes. There's money in research. There was. This is 2010. So we would book all the rooms. And if you're in the research study, you can come and stay in the room. We have doctors, infectious disease, who are there 24 hours a day. So if you wanted to come stay the night, I forgot what the policy was with having family members stay with you. I think it was, against policy, but we weren't like a dorm monitor. We're not looking to see who all is in the room with you and stuff like that. I want to say it was against the policy, or maybe you could have like one person or something like that. But it's not important because we don't care. We're not babysitting. We're there for the research purpose. So you could come stay at the Marriott. It was like for a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's towards the end when most people should be starting to feel the effects if they're going to. stay there. You can go to work during the day and come back at night, stuff like that. It wasn't like you were locked in there 24 hours a day. And so, yeah, this is where, for us as the clinical trial center, we had more people on shift because, when you have 40, 30 people in a research study and they're in the bathroom getting the double dragon on and just feeling like absolute dog shit because they have full blown malaria. We need to get people in there because just because I give you the pills doesn't mean you're instantly cured. It takes time. And so by that time, again, malaria is kicking your ass. And so now we're giving you the pills, we're monitoring you, making sure that you're, okay, drinking, eating, stuff like that, because you feel like absolute crap. Because you have malaria that you got from a mosquito, but we have the cure, but we're still getting blood samples this entire time, right? We're still getting blood samples. You're still getting paid. It's just I'm not gonna say it's a wild time. It's just a busy time because people be effed up. But people they wanted that 4,300. So yeah, they were malaria. It was one of our more popular studies too. That's why I remember it so vividly. It's just we had, we just knew it was like, hey, these next 2 weeks we're gonna be in the hotel. This is where we're gonna see our highest number of positive cases. And sometimes people came back negative, never got it. But it wasn't because we didn't. It wasn't that we missed it, right? We were constantly doing blood draws, sometimes twice a day, just to make sure, like, hey, do you have it? You have it. Okay, you have it. Now let's treat it. Let's draw blood. Check. Treat. Check. Treat. Check. Treat. You're good. Okay, you don't feel any more effects. Okay, check. 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 And you had to be cleared fully before we were letting you go. $4,300. But yeah, that was a really interesting time just because we got to recruit people. You saw we had to put out flyers around DC, Maryland, and we would get all types of people wanting to come in and volunteer for that. And it was just like, hey man, you got to stick your hand in a nest full of mosquitoes, right? Like, bet. Okay, it's 4,300. All right, cool. Like, yo, y'all bugged out. Like, I couldn't get past that part, me personally. But clinical trials was really fun. The downside to clinical trials was I replaced a really good dude that worked there. I actually replaced him in blood research too. So I was like following the fucking guy around the building. But he was really good dude. Why was he a really good dude? Because he's one of the few people in my career where he spoke like as a human being instead of, as a boss, as a person with more rank. He was one of those people who were willing to have that conversation because it was never about me being a disrespectful person, right? I respect people's rank. I respect the work that you put in. Now, if you're a shit human being, if you're a shit character, I don't care what your rank is. You still get respect as that rank because this is my job. But as a person, I don't rock with you. And so for me, I've always been a person where if you appeal to me as a person and not try to diminish me because I've only got 10 years in, I've only got 3 years in, I'm still a grown adult. You see what I'm saying? And half the way that y'all treat me, half the things that y'all say to me, y'all wouldn't say if you didn't feel some sort of protection. That's why now we have the on-site list, right? Because nobody's protected. So this is kind of my first run-in with someone for the on-site list. So I replaced a really good dude, someone who was willing to just, let me holler at you, like on some real shit. Let me talk to you. And so I can take that. Like I'm a really coachable person. Like you're not gonna call me like bitches and motherfuckers, okay? You're not gonna do all that. But if you just like, yo, like pull your head out your ass, you tripping, you bugging. If you just talk to me real, I listen to that, because you don't have to do that. And not a lot of people can do that. And not a lot of people will do that. I was that type of person. Like that's not something I do in front of people. It's like, yo, let's have a conversation. Let's talk. Walk with me. Walk with me. And so it's just like, I'm not, forget all of the sergeant, the sir, forget all of that shit. Let's just talk. Because right now you making mistakes. You a grown ass man, and you shouldn't be making these petty mistakes, right? You shouldn't be doing stuff. I don't want to treat you like a 15-year-old. I don't want to treat you like a 16-year-old. You're 26, you're 25, you're 29. So that's the way I carried it, because people carried that with me through all of my first duty station, when I had, my 3 NCOs who were really down to earth and who really just snatched me up and just be like, yo, chill out, bro. Like, you wildin'. And I'm like, nah, well, what happened was X, Y, Z. So what it is they let me explain myself. A lot of times when we criticize people, when we chastise someone, we don't let them explain why they did what they did. Okay, it's just like, I don't understand. Like, why are you doing that? It doesn't make any sense. And they'd be like, you need to tighten up. All right, but just let me speak. Again, I'm from a different background from where you're from. So where you may not understand, if you let me explain my thought process, you might become a better leader, because now you've been exposed to something different. And I'm going to become a better person because I can see things from your perspective, but at least let me explain as to what I was thinking, what I was doing. And so he let me do that. We never had I'm not talking about like we're shouting and all that stuff. It was just like, yo, you're making mistakes, and I don't see you making those type of mistakes. So what's going on? Like, what's happening? So I replaced him. He was a really good guy. What happened was the director was like all over this dude, in love with him as far as who he was as a person. He's a little bit of a rah-rah sis boom bah guy, and I'm never like that. I've never been like that, never will be like that. And I've been chastised a lot because I'm not like that. The Army really wants these bravados. It's like rah-rah, say it with your chest. And they don't necessarily care for the people who have those hard behind the scenes conversations, or those who lead by example. They want the person that's out there being the loudest. And I've always said the loudest person is probably the weakest person, right? Because they're trying to get across an image that probably isn't real. So the director is in love with this guy. And I'm just like, you got big shoes to fill, and he was a really important person. He did a lot. I don't care if he was the Pope, the president, and Neil Armstrong himself. I'm not him. So I'm not trying to be him. And this is the problem with the military, is that they don't let you be yourself. People get an idea of what they deem a good leader is. Someone who is easy for them to digest, easy for them to handle, easy for them to understand. And so now you must meet that criteria. It's like, no, I'm my own fucking man. I'm my own person. I'm not doing that. I don't do things that way. And I'm not unsuccessful. I'm literally here to take over this position for a reason. So why are you trying to change who I am? I'm not going to change. And so that is where I start running into the friction with bosses. This was the old white guy. The friction with bosses who had an idea of how they want a person to be. And if you weren't like that, you were wrong. And so again, this is where me and my friend differ. He's able to shapeshift to fit that situation in a good way. I'm not. I can shapeshift a little bit, but I'm not coming out of who I am at my core to change and impress somebody. And that's been a limiting factor. It really started in 2010. It showed its ugly head in different at different times, but this is one of the first times it really showed outside of like the deployment, because I didn't really know those people. I had met them there, but now this is someone that I'm working for every single day, and this is my duty station in DC at home, so we're not in a war zone. So we had friction, and he wasn't. If you're a good leader and you see someone who you don't vibe with, you have a conversation, like you talk. Let's try to get on the same page. Let me understand you. Understand me. Let's see if we can come to some sort of agreement. Let's meet halfway. But no, he was just like, if you're not like this, then you're wrong. And I'm like, well, I'm not like that. So I'm not going to say I'm wrong, but I'm just not like that. And so you're going to have to get over that. And so what happened was, when he did my eval, he put himself in a position where he shouldn't have been. It's hard to explain, like, if you don't understand like the hierarchy for evaluations, but you have your first line kind of supervisor who is your evaluator, and you have a secondary person, which is like your boss's boss, who is supposed to be someone who is non-biased, who is looking at you from a totality, a total vision. And ideally those two people should agree, right? One person can't say, oh, I'm terrible, I come to work late, I don't get my job done, and another person says, oh, you're great, you're amazing, you're the best I've ever worked with. So basically, even though I worked directly for him every single day, reported to him, he gave it to someone else to write as my direct leader. That way, because again, you couldn't deny the work I was doing. That's one thing. I take ownership of my attitude and my thought processes. I've always done that. But what no one could hold against me was the fact that I didn't do my job. I've always done my job. I've always done a really good job at it, because I know it's less ammo. You already have ammo because I am who I am, and I'm not changing. I'm standing on who I am. Damn what you think about it. But what you're not going to do is, I'm not going to give you ammo to attack my work, my ethic, my work ethic, my product, my results, right? So he couldn't do that. And as the senior evaluator, you don't assess work specifically. You just assess what I've seen overall. And so he had someone else write as my evaluator, and he was my senior evaluator. And while I didn't get a bad evaluation, it was normal. And so that was his way of getting back at me because he didn't rock with me on a working level. And instead of just trying to meet halfway, have conversations, work with me, learn me, he just wanted me to adjust to him. And that's bad leadership, 100%. If I'm a good leader, yes, I have a leadership style. However, as a good leader, you have to understand that you have to treat everyone differently to get the best out of them, because our abilities are different, our motivations are different, our responses are different, our resilience is different. So I might be able to coach someone really hard, like, man, you're trash today, you need to work on that. And that person may be like, you're right. I'm trash today. Let me get in there. Let me work on it. Because they're self-aware. They can take that because they acknowledge that. And then you have some people that's like, man, you trash today. And they're just like, they don't fully recover from that because now their confidence level is low. And where you're trying to like coach them up and push them to just push through that, their response to that is different. Sometimes you don't know how somebody's going to react until you do that. So leadership is a bunch of trial and error. So I say the same thing about relationships. We can't expect, oh, well, he's a leader. He said he's a leader, so he should be doing this, this, and this. No, leadership is sometimes you try things, it doesn't work. We regroup, we try again. That's what it is. But once you make a decision, you stand on that decision. Leadership is not, yeah, I make a decision, it doesn't work, then I blame you. Or I make a decision, it works, and I take all the credit. It's, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I adjust and try to get it to work. So he was a terrible leader. I can still see his face, still see his name. Terrible leader because he wanted everyone to adjust to him. And I think it was a little bit of a God complex. Again, we're in the medical field. There's a bunch of nurses, a bunch of, nurse practitioners, doctors, infectious disease doctors. So I feel like he thought he was king on the mountaintop and everybody had to adjust to how he does things. That's one thing they teach us about leadership in the military is that it's adjustable. When they're talking to you and they're talking about people who are subordinate to you, they're talking about how you adjust to them, how you lead them, how it's just not, you don't make decisions in a vacuum. You take in information and you make the best decision with the information that you have. That's the best approach. When they're talking about you and how you relate to people above you, they just want you to do what that person tells you to do. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. This whole, you do it unless it's unethical and immoral. No, I do it because it makes sense and you've thought about it. I'm not just doing it because you're moving on a whim. That's not happening. We're not even letting that fly here. So that's where we had the clashing of heads. And again, he's one of those guys where if we were in a different setting, your posture, your demeanor would be totally different. If I saw him today, he would not have that same type of fucking energy. But you know who has that same type of energy? I do. I do. Because who I was in uniform was kind of the same as who I was outside of uniform. My principles were still the same. I didn't do a 180 because I put on the uniform. I couldn't do that. And I found out later that, they have definitions for that. You're supposed to have like a personal self and a professional self. I'm not doing all of that, man. Like, why can't people just be genuinely good people? And then we can all get along. We don't have to change up because we're at work. Your behavior at work should be professional and upstanding the way your behavior at home should be professional and upstanding, right? I'm not coming into the workplace and being a team player and, taking everybody's advice and making all these great decisions. And then I go home and I'm robbing banks. Like, no, I'm going home and I'm chilling. I'm not doing anything, doing the same thing I do at work. You know what I'm saying? Talking to friends, getting information, making the decisions based on, what's best from what I know. That's how I'm doing it. But yeah, I think this was one of the first people on the on-site list. I don't know if he's still on there now. Just because he's really not worth he didn't do anything malicious. The people on the on-site list are they were doing malicious stuff, right? And it was obvious. He didn't do anything malicious. He just wasn't a good leader. And it's easier to say, well, I'm higher than you, so you do as I say. You adapt to me, but I'm not with that. And I wasn't with that in 2010. And Wasn't with that before. I'm not with that now. Like if I have to adapt, it has to be like for a reason, not just because you want me to. Like in my personal life, yes, I want to adapt to something because I want a partner. I want someone in my life. Yes, I will do that. That's a choice that I'm making. But no one can come into my life professionally or personally and say, you must change to how I want you to be. Who? Not me. Not I. So, yeah. So that was 2010. I was having a good time doing the clinical trials, but there's always something that is preventing you from enjoying it to the max. And it was him. Like he was preventing me from enjoying it to the max because he just wasn't a good leader. I'm just gonna leave it like that. So that's 2010. It was a good year. I had a lot of fun changing jobs, doing something different. In 2011, that's when I moved to another job. So we'll talk about that on Monday. Remember, this Quarter Century Soldier series is every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And we will go through the years of me being on active duty. So again, thank y'all for watching this episode of the Quarter Century Soldier 2010, and I'll see y'all in 2011.